to get us out of a certain jam that we got in Northern Illinois University.
Okay.
That Sir Robert Ellis, aka Batman, helped to get us into. It's a lengthy story, but I can tell it if you want.
We'll try to give us the short version.
Short version was Robert went off to NIU. He was going there to school. He was trying to get into fraternities, couldn't get into any. He said, being the creative mind that he was, I give him that, I'll create my own fraternity.
Yes, he did.
It was Phi Beta Epsilon?
Beta Phi Epsilon.
Beta Phi Epsilon.
BOE, his initials, suspiciously, those were his initials, BE. Okay. But anyway.
There you go. So he created this fraternity. I guess he got a charter for it and everything. Held an event, booked us.
Yeah.
I believe as headliners of the thing.
Yes.
So we went up there to perform, thinking, okay, we're going to do a few routines.
Yeah.
He apparently had told the campus administration that he booked it, because they're the ones that funded the thing, that he booked an hour show. 60 minutes of performances. I know you remember this because when we got up there, and we're done after 10 minutes, that's when, it was either just before or just after that he decides to tell us, no, I booked you for an hour, we got to do an hour. We never had an hour's worth of performances. Even when we were booked at other venues by promoters, it was for 1 or 2 performances.
Thank you.
5-7 minutes at the most. We don't have an hour, and so we stretched it out. This sparse crowd, by the way.
Right. Oh my God.
That's another story, but I mean, these guys were not liking the fact that we were stretching out some of the same stuff, and it was going on ad nauseum. They were as tired of seeing us as we were being up there. Next morning, though, we had to go into the administration's office. I forget the specific office, but we had to justify why we should get paid for the performance we put on, because they were the ones cutting the checks. And I had to provide what I think was my greatest performance, by the way, in explaining why we should get paid for 60 minutes worth of performing that we didn't really do.
Man.
And then once we were able to convince the individual, I don't know how I convinced her, but once we convinced her, she cut the check. We got out of there as fast as we could.
Now, a couple of things that you just, I mean, we could talk about this stuff all year and still have more stuff to talk about. But you said a couple of things. We talked about Wayne. You were in the chosen few.
I was a founding member of that. Here was the deal with Wayne, and obviously you were key in that. Kirk was the original Doctor's DJ.
Right.
You know, we were at the time, you were thinking, which I thought was very clever, to have a DJ identified with the group for our events, so it's not just us being an attraction, people are also coming for the DJ. They also know who's going to be spinning at the set.
That's how it all started.
And Wayne at the time, Kirk was established even as as a freshman with us. He was the DJ for Mendo's Bi-Levels. Now,
regular parties.
Right. But for a freshman to walk in the door and do that, you know, it's not like Kirk came in with a reputation from grammar school or something. He came in and he was the DJ. I never thought to ask him how he was able to manage that. All I know was, here's Kirk DJing. I was like, wow, okay.
Well, Kirk worked hard. He worked hard all his life. And
he was very good.
Everything,
he definitely earned it. He was very skilled and he was very bright.
But he worked at McDonald's too for a long time, and I'm talking. He worked hard. When I say worked hard, I mean
he worked hard. He had a.
I'll give him some props.
He had a
reluctantly sometimes.
And he had the chops for it. You know, otherwise we wouldn't have been having him ourselves. Well, Wayne at the time was still developing his DJ stuff, and he wanted in. So he was he was learning his craft, and you know, him and Kirk are cousins, so he's learning as much as he can from that end, and he's hanging around with DJs. So he was serious about it, even at the time when I didn't know how serious he was. Well, he one day, after a while, long story short, he becomes the Doctor's DJ after Kirk. So it's either Kirk or Wayne. It's one of the two. Now Wayne comes to me one day with an idea. He had always had this idea, the seed of the idea in his head. Even I think when you guys were in grammar school, even before we came into high school, he had the concept.
Right.
But by the time we hit our junior, senior years, it was a full-blown idea, and it was prompted by the fact that as the DJ at the events, he got paid a flat fee. It didn't matter how much money we made. He was never going to make more than what he had gotten paid for that particular set.
Okay.
So if it was 50 or 250 or whatever, that's what he got.
Right.
We could have made thousands.
Yeah.
He's making that. So his motivation behind it was he wanted gate money.
Right.
Because he's like, well, I'm building up a following. People know who I am. I should be able to do this, and I can promote myself through my own events. I can come up with a group. And since he had the idea of the chosen few in one incarnation or another for a few years anyway,
right.
He came to me, he said Batman was already on board. He already had him. And he had Ewart Abner involved because Ewart was dating Kim, his older sister at the time. So they were pretty much in. So I was really the last piece. And in coming in, of course, I brought whatever following I had by virtue of the Doctors.
Thank you.
And then, of course, the art chops to do whatever visuals I would do for the chosen because they wanted something. He wanted something similar. Wayne wanted something already identifiable to the crowd that knew him.
Right.
So very clever in that respect, but he wanted a different concept. So it wasn't going to be the cartoonish one that we had always had as the Doctors. It was going to be something a little bit more progressive.
Okay.
So then, all right, so we're the chosen few, and now he's got an opportunity not only to make the gate money, so instead of maybe a few hundred, he's making a few thousand, like we were.
Yes.
Now he can develop his craft as a bona fide attraction, if you will, or develop himself into the kind of attraction that Kirk had become with the Mendel parties, and we had become ourselves. So this idea that he had, it started to get legs, and so after a handful of the events with them, and after I left the Doctors and the chosen few, I left the party scene for all intent and purposes. Ewart left. I think it was the first one to leave.
Right, he was.
Presumably because he and Kim broke up. I'm assuming that. But when he left, that's when Jesse came in.
Yeah.
And then Batman was around, but he wasn't being as active a member of the group. So that's when we decided to get Lerone involved.
Yeah.
Because Lerone was getting more involved with all of this party scene.
Yeah.
Because he was one of the founding members of the other.
Yeah, let's be honest. Lerone was in every group. I mean, he was in everybody's group, probably.
Lerone was every bit the social butterfly that you would expect the son of Ebony's editor-in-chief to be.
Man.
And he was every bit the likable guy that you would expect that individual to be, and every bit the influential guy. Yeah. Which is part of the reason we said, let's get Lerone in the chosen.
He was in the Doctors. He was in the Doctors for a second. Yeah.
His involvement is helping to create the Ebony Gents.
Yeah.
He and the other guys in the Gents, between them and the secretaries.
Yeah.
Yuta, Cheryl Burton, and that group, between those two, deciding to do what we were doing, I give them credit with jump-starting the whole scene, where all of a sudden you had dozens of groups. Coming out of the work, because now it wasn't just us doing something. We weren't unique per se anymore. We weren't unique in that we were the only ones doing it. Now we had inspired. What's the term? We inspired not impersonators, but
not copycats,
but people doing the same thing.
Right.
We had inspired that. And now they were inspiring other groups because they had social groups, cliques and such of their own that were following them.
Right.
And so it spread out. And ultimately, we all started turning in Craig's direction because he was doing something that was beyond us. It was another step or two or maybe more up. because now here's a guy. He's throwing fashion shows. I know that's where you got that from. Craig's doing fashion shows. He's hanging out with actual clothing designers, makeup artists.
Yeah.
So he's getting into the mainstream of, say, fashion and celebrity even.
Yeah.
And now he's doing this thing at the warehouse, and that's where all of our attention was caught. And everything that the warehouse grew into, our social group represented half of the dynamic that helped create that house movement. And we were inspired by what Craig had done, because no one had done that. As far as I know, he's the first one to have utilized that facility that was not as far as I know, a member or anything like that. And so it took off. That's why I consider him one of the 4 criticals.
Yeah.
But so many, you and Tony and other guys, I mean, ultimately Wayne and the gang, all had a critical part in not just creating, but in cultivating it. And then Wayne and keeping the Chosen Few going, and actually not just keeping that alive, but actually influencing it well beyond not just the area, but the country. His involvement with Jive Records, and that's when I started to realize this was never just some phase or some activity that he got enjoyment out of. This was something this was what he wanted to do in life. So if he had never become as big as he has, he would probably still be doing it. He'd just be doing it at little clubs or something.
Maybe not. We never know what the future holds, but I do believe that people impact each other's lives all the time without even knowing.
Right. Yeah.
And we talked a lot about a lot of stuff. We didn't really talk about the doctors per se too much, but we talked about the experience, the Mendel experience, and how it developed and evolved. And Mendel was such a key to this whole thing.
Yeah.
Think about it. Craig Thompson, class of 77.
Oh, right.
The doctors, basically the class of 78.
Tony and Steve, class
and then
of
here
79.
comes Tony Smith, class of 79.
You could argue that Mendel was the central element in the whole thing.
Exactly.
Mendel was the if you will, the Big Bang, if you will. Put it in those kind of social terms, because that's the place where everyone came together that eventually went away and influenced what was going to happen for decades to come up until today. So that's a key. I mean, if it were a person, I would include Mendel. But as a place, none of any of that stuff takes place without Mendel. And it's ironic because Mendel was not my first choice for a high school.
That's weird, man. But hey, it is what it is.
Yeah, Mendel was the alternative. When I was looking at going to high school, because I visual artist and stuff, and I was also wanting to get into music, I was looking in the direction of Kenwood.
Yeah.
So Kenwood was where I wanted to go. They had a good drama program, they had a good arts program, music program was second to none at the time. So they had a lot going for them. What they also had, unfortunately for me, at that time, was some very rigid districting for the public schools.
Yeah.
So my dad, even though he was a cop, well-connected cop at the time, he could not get me into that district, into Kenwood. So I had to coin, the paraphrase, had to settle for Mendel because several of the guys from my grammar school were going to Mendel. So I said, well, I might as well go there since, because they were asking me where I wanted to go. I just thought, if you guys can afford it, I'll go there because several of the guys from grammar school are going. At least I'll know a bunch of guys already.
Jamie.
And then my cousins went there.
I'm going to say it's pretty safe to say that if you had gone to Kenwood, we would have never had the doctors like it was. It would never been the way it was. It just never couldn't have happened.
But I'd be rich and famous, so that's okay. No, that's true. That's true. It's pure provenance.
Everybody had a role.
Yeah.
We even figured out Steve's role. The You know, everybody had a role, man.
A very important role. It was. I don't think it would have happened the way it happened without the way things unfolded, without the individuals that were involved, and the degree and nature of their involvement.
Yeah.
So I think, especially in terms of my ending up at Mendel, it was very fortuitous. It was sheer. It was sheer providence, because I clearly was not meant to go to Kenwood. I was meant to be there.
So you go to Mendel, you meet Bob, you're drawing these some of the best mazes I've ever seen in my life. I still don't know how to get out of some of them. Oh my God. This guy was so talented, you guys.
I wasted a tremendous amount of time on those. I should remember that.
Jamie, tell everybody, what were the doctors to you? What do they represent? What did the doctors represent to you?
The doctors in a nutshell. The doctors were really a microcosm for what could be considered an ideal social environment for young people of the time. Now, all of us are going to Mendel. It's a Catholic school. You got to pay to go there. There's no one that's necessarily poor per se going there. So we were all at least working class, many of us middle class. So we were definitely advantaged over, say, kids that ended up at the lower grade public schools. But having said that, the opportunities that were afforded us, we tried to maximize and take advantage of as much as possible.
Mm-hmm.
We had both strong work ethics and strong character ethics instilled in us by our parents, for the most part. I can't think of too many people that came out of that school that I knew or knew of that did not end up at least making a strong go of having a solid and productive life. So it was the doctors were almost an inevitable byproduct or a result of the kind of quality of character and quality of young men that we were being turned into and learning to become by virtue of being at Mendel. Now, the Catholic Church's problems aside, that particular institution was already very well known. It had earned its reputation. It had a very lofty education reputation. A couple of the teachers there who we knew and attended class under were nationally recognized. The school's sports program was one of the strongest in the country. The football team was nationally known from past years and glories. The wrestling team was one of the best in the region. The track team were champions. The basketball team was turning into that and reached that point a few years after we had graduated. Mm-hmm. So they had a lot going for them, and it was a very cohesive and very stable environment for young men, even within the Roseland community that was undergoing upheaval and some unfortunate changes.
True.
You know, so we were a microcosm for that, and I think that all of the people that had gone to Mendel, you know, we got Facebook pages, keep in touch with each other. We keep the monarch mantra going.
That's right.
Refer to each other as monarchs. We have Hall of Fames and reunions, even though the school has not existed now for a quarter of a century or more. But the impact that it had on the lives of a lot of people, many of them very accomplished, even celebrated, whether they graduated or not, because Wayne didn't actually graduate with us. He went there.
He started there,
He started there, but he finished I think Kenwood, didn't he?
No, he went to Kenwood too.
I'll ask him about that.
Yeah, we'll find out.
I'll ask him on the Chosen Few document.
There you go.
But all of those individuals, they were influenced in a very positive and very concrete manner by Mendel, and the doctors I saw as a microcosm of that. So I hope that the Augustinian order that ran that school and the people that administered the school saw the doctors as an extension of the kind of values that they were trying to promote for that school. Because as I saw it, that's what we were.
Jamie, Dr. Kiley, Chico, do you remember the day Father Dodge called everybody's name at lunch to individually, the doctor members, to come to the principal's office right after the announcements. We read the announcements every day, and they pulled us in there. I thought we were in trouble.
I do remember that, because I was thinking, what did Bob do now? God did something, got us all in a fix. But yeah, I do remember that. Now, I had all the details of the meeting once we were there were a little blurry, because understand that as it happened, I was also a member of so many different groups. I was in the principal's office frequently. Between the Student Senate, the Knights of Augustine, and all these other groups. Yeah. Because a lot of times, and this is another little tidbit, later around the years that we were promoting the doctors, Kirk and I would frequently meet in the office with either Father O'Grady or Mr. Ryapan or whoever. Kirk was like an official ambassador for the school, for the parties. So he would be at the sister schools and all the other schools promoting those. But unlike you guys, I had a very short schedule because I had already amassed enough points to have graduated. So I only had 2 classes every day. So I was the one that could be out early distributing doctors, plugging doctors' parties. So me and Kirk would end up at the same place as a lot.
Yeah.
So I was in that office a lot. So I can't recall the details. I know you were probably crapping your pants, so you probably remember all the details of it. But it had to do with the doctors in a very positive way.
It was let me refresh your memory. They called us in because they wanted to ask us to have a party at the gym.
Right.
And to use our name. And the funny thing that I remember...
Endorsed by the school.
Right.
For the first time, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. The funniest thing, though, that I remember was, we're not in trouble. Cool. So he wants to give a party. Okay. Well, it was funny because we all kind of said, well, we got to go ask our mother. We got to go home and ask our mommy, So we were just kids. So I mean, I remember they asked us who do we want to DJ, and we were like, well, I remember Stephanie Ward from Aquinas, and my girl Camille Jarrett, and all those, the ladies with class. That was the name of their social club.
I remember them. Yeah.
And they had just given a party, and Kirk had DJ'd that party. So I said, well, I remember Kirk just let's let him DJ our party. So that's how that whole conversation went. Right. But everybody was like, when they in the classroom, when they announced it, everyone said, "That's the doctors." When he said everyone's name, Somerville, Anthony Somerville, Steve Taylor, Jamie Shelton, Dave Tony Harris, Robert Peters, Darren Davis, come to the doctor's office right now. And it was like, man, that's the doctors. They in trouble. Everybody thought the doctors were in trouble. But that was a, go ahead.
Hey, you know what else what I had thought of, and it was something that had been mentioned, I forget who by, but it had been brought up. The original mascot, well, not even mascot, but the original logo design for the group was a hypodermic needle.
We talked about that.
And there was someone had brought up early on, outside of our group, not any one of us, but someone had brought up early on that could be an issue because people might be thinking you're promoting drug use or something.
Okay.
And I thought at the time that maybe it's that they want to distance themselves from this group that's promoting drug use with this hypo. That's part of what gave rise to the doctor character, was to kind of neutralize.
Get away from that and move to it. And Jamie, me and Kildare were talking about that. We used to have meetings. We used to have meetings about this, and I called a meeting about that needle. And I was like, man,
people blew it off.
Yeah, people thought we were, calling us, are we drug dealers, or what is this supposed to mean? And so we had to make that executive decision. Yeah.
Needed something a little bit softer. Yeah.
We had another meeting about how can I say, romance, relationships.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
You may or may not remember. We called a meeting because we were so popular that we were getting a sullied reputation around the women. So we had to kind of make a difference.
You guys were.
No, don't put that on me. But anyway, but we had to come to an agreement about how we're gonna.
Well, half the battle is understanding that you have a problem. So that was good.
The first step. but Dr. Kiley, how would you like the doctors to be remembered? How would you like us to be remembered?
The thing that always gratifies me is actually the doctors are remembered the way I would like them to be remembered. They're remembered as a central element of a very positive time in the city as a whole, not merely among kids, but overall, but especially among high schoolers and college people of that time. And beyond that, a contributory element to a greater social scene that gave birth to House. I think the group is remembered that way. Not everyone went to a doctor's party, obviously. Not everyone,
Right.
A lot of people did hear of the doctors. Not everyone heard of them, but I did meet people in other states that knew of the doctors, and they were not from Illinois. So the group had a national reach in some ways. I'm assuming from people that had gone to our events, they go away to college, they're talking about it, and they're developing, and maybe they're planting a seed for that same kind of scene where they happen to be.
Mm-hmm.
So the way the group is remembered is the way I like it remembered, because over the course of time, if the concept itself is positive, that's what's going to be remembered. The little stuff that maybe we would like to forget, ultimately it is forgotten, and the greater thing is remembered.
All right then, Jamie Shelton. Dr. Kiley, do you have anything that you would want to leave people with? Any final thoughts? You got any?
Actually, yeah. It's not a final thought or anything, but we may already do this or make this happen before anyone's actually seeing any of this stuff. But I'm hoping that we'll be able to find people out there that maybe have some old taped footage or some old photographs of us performing or not performing, either or, that we're unaware of. Because I know just from performances we did at Mendel, at some of the Mendel events, I remember cameras being used and pictures being taken that I'm pretty sure we never got the photos of. And it could have been cameras maybe from the school. Maybe the Augustinian Order has some vintage shots. I'd like to be able to, if it's at all possible, get to those people. Hopefully they still have that. Get some of those photos. Maybe there's some old real footage or something like that, and we can collect that stuff up and archive it. Have it all in one spot.
Yeah.
Because at the time, obviously, we all know this. We were not thinking in those terms at the moment. It wasn't until after we no longer were that we had the idea we probably should have recorded what we did more. So hopefully the people that did do it still have it. That'd be nice to get that stuff. That'd be really cool to have.
And one question I forgot to ask you, man. Did you have a favorite plugger?
Oh, you know what? Yeah, that's a good question. I think, to be honest with you, I think was the third one. It was the cereal box. I thought that was funny. I liked it because as I was doing it, it was entertaining me. I was chuckling at it. I thought, oh yeah, this is going to be pretty funny. So that one I really liked because to me that was symbolic of of what I, at least myself, wanted us to be. Not too self-important, very much tongue-in-cheek, and very much different than the norm. Very much off the norm and something that hadn't been seen before.
Yeah.
No one had done that. You know, the ones that were doing parties on any regular basis, they were trying to be serious or seriously cool.
Right.
You know, the Sam Chapmans of the world, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
They were trying to be either grown up or very serious or very straightforward, and I wanted to be the opposite of that. So I think that one, to me, that captured it more than the other stuff I did.
That one stands out with me the most, Jamie. As far as every quality that you just mentioned, we were just being kids, you know. We were having fun.
Yeah, that was the kid in us.
Yeah,
you know, coming out, because I mean, obviously, we're trying to be more than just that, but that was the kid in us, and saying we're letting it play. And there's a certain self-confidence that comes with that kind of thing.
There you go.
A certain self-assurance that we can poke fun at ourselves and at the whole idea of it. You know, the whole idea of throwing the party and the performance and all that, because it, you know, the moment we ever thought that we were seriously anything, we're kind of coming off track from what had made us what we were. So I like that. Right
on, Jamie, man. Thanks, Dr. Kiley. Okay? Cut. So
good one. You holding it together?
Hold it together. You gotta do me.
Oh yeah.
Now you can use that as a roadmap or whatever.
Oh, well, I'll think of something.
Yeah, I'm sure you're gonna have it.
I have, yeah. That's for the time you got busted.
Oh.
Oh, there's your pen.
Yeah, you can use it if you want.
Let me make sure there's enough time on this card for you.
Yeah, we've been going, man.
Yeah. Okay, good. Yeah, we're still recording.